Donald Trump and his weaponized Department of Justice are freaking out that there are multiple whistleblowers who continue to leak information to Democrats in the House of Representatives and to the press about the conduct of Donald Trump's weaponized DOJ. They're trying to find who these so-called leakers are versus actually changing course and not violating the law. The most recent whistleblower leak involves a case that appears now to be deeply frivolous, involving the Trump regime prosecuting the Southern Poverty Law Center in Alabama. We believe this entire prosecution is tainted by grand jury misconduct, as the Southern Poverty Law Center has raised numerous red flags in a court filing to a federal judge, saying that numerous false statements about their involvement with confidential informants have already been made in the underlying pleadings and in public that are just very easy to rebut. For example, Donald Trump's Department of Justice says the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, never informed the FBI, local police, or the Department of Justice about paying local confidential informants in various situations about these payments, or about the fact that the Southern Poverty Law Center was involved in an informant program in order to determine extremist groups that could be involved or were involved in very violent acts. And the SPLC says, what are you talking about? Like, we've literally worked with the prosecutors who are bringing this criminal case against us for over a decade. For decades, we've been working with you as your partners in this, whether it's like informal partners or whatever. What do you mean? We've given you this information. We've prepared dossiers for you that have led to criminal prosecutions. And same thing with the FBI, same thing with local police. And before you went to the grand jury, when we became aware we were potentially targets of a frivolous criminal case, we then provided you with information again that showed you our program worked hand in hand with you. And so a whistleblower, though, went to Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin and informed Congressmember Raskin and other Democrats, because they're the only people who are going to listen to these whistleblowers at this point, that there seems to have been a rushed indictment of SPLC, and this was part of a broader plan that Attorney General Todd Blanche, or Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, wanted to endear himself to Donald Trump, to try to become the Attorney General after Pam Bondi was fired. This is the article from MS Now. It talks about this whistleblower letter. DOJ rushed indictment of SPLC, according to whistleblower reports, after a whistleblower expressed concerns about the strength of the case against these civil rights organizations. Member of Congress have questions for prosecutors. A senior Trump administration Justice Department official ordered federal prosecutors in Alabama to rush through a controversial indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center, despite concerns about the strength of the case, according to a description of a whistleblower account obtained by MS Now. Congressmember Raskin, a ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, and Representative Mary Gay Scanlon, ranking Democrat on the subcommittee on the Constitution and Limited Government, described the whistleblower allegations in a letter sent Thursday to Kevin Davidson, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Alabama. According to whistleblower information provided to this committee, Associate Deputy Attorney General Singh ordered your office, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Alabama, to rush through the indictment of the SPLC, despite serious concerns about the strength of the case. The letter said. The letter asks Davidson to turn over records regarding his use of SPLC informants and information in criminal or civil matters from 1996 through 2026, as well as all communications, including emails, phone calls, and text messages among his office, among the top DOJ official Singh, who's very close to the Trump regime and has a high position at the DOJ, Justice Department leadership, and others from January 2025 concerning the investigation and indictment of the SPLC. And we've heard from current and former kind of Trump loyalists at the DOJ that they believe that this is part of the deep state whistleblower community that is working from within to undermine the Trump federal prosecutions, when in fact, the Trump federal prosecutions undermine themselves by being part of a weaponized plan to grab headlines and capture a media cycle, but then quickly fall apart. I mean, y'all remember when Don Lemon was prosecuted, for example? Like, do we even talk about that anymore? They sure rushed to arrest him at the Grammys, but then, after they capture the headline, the Trump regime DOJ is like, yeah, this is a complex case. We want to do we need a lot more time to prepare. Could we delay this case? And then it gets put on that kind of Trumpian litigation track that tries to then delay the cases forever while harming people's reputations. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Now, Harry, this is one example we're highlighting of a whistleblower from within, someone who's currently working there, working confidentially with Democrats on the Judiciary Oversight and other committees. And you and I have done lots of videos about this mass exodus of DOJ lawyers, FBI agents, whether they've been fired or have quit or have been forced out. But there are lots of people who are staying in there, one, because they love their jobs and they just want to hang on for dear life. But I think other people's view themselves as kind of guardians of the system from within and are helping from within. So you have a lot of that going on as well. What do you make of this all, Harry, both in terms of this specific case, but the broader issue of the Trump regime kind of freaking out over the idea, paranoia, whistleblower here, whistleblower there?
Because it really has been part and parcel of what they're doing more broadly. This case actually reminds me very much, even though the charges are different, of the Comey case that they brought a few days later. Both of them, besides being, completely empty and really have been laughed off within the community, they each say nothing about the central part of the evidence, anything about the actual supposed intent on Comey's part. And here, anything about a supposed fraudulent defrauding of, which is the theory here, of sponsors. You need some evidence that they went to them and said, we're never going to work with the with informants in the offices of these extremist groups, and they lied about it. It seems completely far-fetched. On your second point about how paranoid they're being, this is how a whistleblower program is supposed to work. We got similar information out of the Eastern District of Virginia when everyone stood down and said to Lindsay Halligan with the first Comey indictment, you better do that on your own, Ms. U.S. Attorney. We're not getting involved in such an obvious reprisal prosecution. And we have clearly the same thing here with the SPLC. The biggest point, even leaving aside that it's complete garbage of a case, it was for another reason, and this is part of what the whistleblower is saying, politicized. You have this fellow Akash Singh. That's not just a stray name. He's turned up again and again. He is Todd Blanche's man on the ground for the U.S. attorney community. That's the sort of familiar post in the Deputy Attorney General's office. And under Blanche, it's the, brass knuckles enforcer. So he called up and said, not simply, trying to push by any objections. And how can you not have objections here? Because the case, really just doesn't begin to state a claim, but actually said, do it now. Put political pressure not only to do it, but to do it immediately for whatever political reasons they said. Finally, your point, and this is how Raskin responded. Raskin doesn't respond by saying, tell me everything you did in your inner deliberations. He's not going to get those, and he knows it. What he's saying is, and it goes just to the heart of the real meritlessness of the case. The SPLC has been telling you For years, this is what we're doing. No one's tried to hide it. In fact, they've come to you with this information, including an actual meeting in your office. So he's saying to the U.S. attorney there, give me your information on that. Because that, by the way, excluded from the indictment, possibly excluded from the grand jury, but really puts the lie to the whole thing. It's already far-fetched in the extreme to think that somehow the SPLC had turned over its mission to trying to help the very groups it was sworn to combat, but it puts it into another universe if they were taking that information, bringing it to the department or local officers, which, by the way, would make all the sense in the world, because my last point for now is exactly what the FBI and DEA and local do every single day. They infiltrate. How do people think you build cases against the mob? You make your way in, you find an informant, you pay that informant in some way. We don't say when that happens, the DOJ is actually funding the mob. It's ridiculous, and yet it's indistinguishable from this theory. So it's weak, really weak, 8 different ways, and can only be a sort of inference of political reprisal, or just, it's not even reprisal, right? It's just going against a perceived woke enemy. They did it in double time, and they did it arguably, and this is what Raskin wants to find out and why a whistleblower is there, even knowing but pretending not to know that this practice that they're saying actually helps extremist groups they've known about, and they've known about in the context of just what it was, an effort to fight them, the same kind of effort that federal law enforcement and state law enforcement make every day. This is a really sort of cynical, empty, totally political lawsuit at 8 different levels.
Yeah, you can't win a criminal prosecution or a civil lawsuit on your first day's headline. And Donald Trump is someone who wants to grab the headline, then do multiple headlines, and then not follow through on what you say you're going to do in the headline, and then distract and obscure with other headlines and hope people forget about it. I mean, it's
Don Lemon, as you said, right?
Don, and there's so many other examples of that. Yeah. And, he's okay with the case languishing while people are stewing now in these frivolous prosecutions. And frankly, it's kind of like what he views, America's power internationally, just to make this other kind of extension of this. It's, he views a war as a headline, say you won, and then move on, except there's lots of other factors and other people who are like, yeah, we're not moving on after you've engaged in all of this, this conduct. And so, this is why the DOJ doesn't engage in litigation by headlines, and they're very careful. Yes, they'll do a very carefully written press release, a one press conference, if that makes it that they're very careful. Allegedly, everybody's presumed. They're not out there tweeting and sending social media messages. And this is precisely why you don't do that. And even if you weren't the DOJ, as a former litigator, you're not going to win. Sure, is there press strategies that may be needed along the way? Yeah, but judges don't like it. It doesn't have a material impact at all on what happens in the courtroom. That's what you got to focus on. Your jurors, the rules of evidence, win your case. After you win your case, Harry, you want to take a victory lap. You should do it with humility, but you don't do your victory lap before you win your case. I'll give you the final word.
Look, it's more than that judges don't like it. It's completely unethical. Why? It dirties up a defendant, which is exactly what they're trying to do, just leave this false impression. But it has really, as you say, Ben, been turned on its head. It's not simply that they are now violating left and right, the idea of not publicizing, not doing a headline on a case. It's that they're bringing cases that are only that. It's a headline without a body. They want that first hit. SPLC promotes extremism. Jim Comey trying to threaten the president, and there's nothing even behind it. All they get is that headline hit, and they really, at least Todd Blanche must know it, and that serves Trump's political purposes, even though it couldn't be farther from the notion that the Department of Justice is there to do justice without fear or favor. So they're not just dirtying them up in the press. They got nothing when it comes to court, and they're going to be embarrassed, but it's a price that they're obviously ready to pay if it gives Donald Trump the sort of short-term, oxygen, adrenaline rush of seeing his enemies tarred and feathered in the headlines of a newspaper.
It's fascinating, Harry. I referenced this at the outset, but all of these MAGA personalities just posting that it's the Democrats are interfering with this criminal investigation, whether it's Julie Kelly. Oh, look, Democrats have a whistleblower claiming that Akash Singh, whom FK refers to as Blanche's enforcer, like it's a bad thing, pressured the U.S. attorney to charge SPLC. Never mind, a grand jury found enough evidence to hand up an indictment, and we need thousands more like Akash Singh or Mike Davis. Better question, why are these Democrats obstructing justice by illegally interfering with an ongoing federal criminal prosecution? Or Jared Wise. During my time as a Trump political appointee at the DOJ, information from my emails was continually leaked to the media after the New York Times revealed that I, as a former J6 defendant, was working as a senior advisor to the Deputy Attorney General. So he's like, by the way, weird that a J6 guy is
exactly.
Whatever. But that's what they are saying right now, and so that's what their focus is on, not the underlying merits of a case.
That's
so anyway,
right. Well, two very quick points, which is just what they said. First, you're supposed to have whistleblowers because there's a program that Congress has established to try to deal with improprieties with the oversight committees and doing it right. That's exactly what it is. But second, we're now back to the idea that, a grand jury did it, so that must suffice. You and I have been there. It's true that there's been some stunning episodes in which they couldn't even get things by a grand jury. But we just got to understand the idea that a grand jury signed off on a prosecutor's proposed indictment means basically nothing. It's only not happened to me, not to me, but to anyone I ever supervised in one case in my career. It really doesn't advance the ball, and that's what they're now depending on. Really, it's the sort of last refuge of prosecutorial scoundrels.
Everybody, make sure you subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube, Talking Feds, on YouTube. He also has the Substack and the podcast called Talking Feds. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Ben.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.